The labor market has changed. Would you agree with that? The people who you employ, who are trying to employ, are different. Now, at no point on this stage has anybody judged the changing consumer. At no point has someone said consumers these days are cheap, are idiots, are lazy, are entitled. They used adjectives, but ones that were less judgmental, right? Coming from a place of clarity. What I've noticed among so many small business owners these days is how judgmental we are about the labor market. And I understand. It's not that I don't have my own opinions about young workers these days. Believe me, I have 2 teenagers. But the problem is these conversations aren't productive. When we sit around and vent about how they're lazy, they're entitled, fill in the blank, they don't want to work, that's time that we're not figuring out solutions. I talked to so many of you who said that staffing was an issue, but not all of you. And they said, actually, for us, and they all said in separate conversations, staffing, it's not as much a problem for us for various reasons. I think it was Dave who was telling me, I go out of my way to hire really busy teenagers because busy people tend to be more responsible. Instead of giving them 6 shifts, maybe just give them 1 or 2 shifts a week and get a lot more, and that works for him. To recognize it, to understand it, and figure out how can we change things so that we can adjust to today's marketplace. A few years ago, Time magazine had a magazine cover that talked about millennials, describing them as lazy narcissists, that kind of thing. Okay? In the 70s, New York Magazine had a cover called The Me Generation, saying all the same things about workers. Okay? There was one quote that I read talking about how young people, they think so much of themselves because they haven't lived enough to really know what's going on. You know who said that quote? Aristotle. For generations, thousands of years, people complained about younger generations. And I'll guarantee you, Aristotle's parents complained about him. What's with this kid? All he does is sit around and think. Like, I'll guarantee you that that went on. And again, I realize that since the pandemic, young workers, it is like a whole other breed. I get that, okay? I acknowledge that. So what are we going to do? Aristotle actually identified 3 ways we can have more influence on other people. And this is true for consumers, and it's certainly true for employees. The first thing is what he described as logos. That is logic, using data, information, and reason to make an argument. Your corporate office has been doing that all morning, giving you like the actual bullet points, the facts, the data. Okay. Think about commercial for a car. It talks about the features, the colors, the pricing. It's the information that we need. That's logos. Then there's ethos, credibility. Why should I believe you? That automobile commercial, maybe it shows you the trophies from J.D. Power & Associates, how the car is #1 in its class. Maybe they show Matthew McConaughey driving the car. If he drives a Lincoln, well, if you like Matthew McConaughey, you're going to pay closer attention. So that is credibility. Finally, there is pathos, which is emotion. That is tapping into people's feelings. If I can get you to feel something, I can get you to do something. I remember when I was a kid, there was a commercial from Head & Shoulders dandruff shampoo. Had a woman in a black pantsuit in a crowded elevator, and she had white flakes on her shoulders. She looked mortified. I remember thinking, boy, I don't ever want that experience. I better buy Head & Shoulders. It is the politician who gives you this inspirational, aspirational vision of what's possible if you elect him or her, and then they try to scare you by how their opponent will destroy the country if they win. It's the automobile commercial. It tells you nothing about the car. It just shows in the driveway, and on this side of the hedge is the neighbor in his bathrobe watering, and he's totally jealous as he's looking at the car. Wouldn't you love to make your neighbor feel that way? It's commercials that show a starving child or a hurt animal asking us to reach into our pockets. And if they get us to feel something, they can get us to do something. Does this make sense? So we want to make sure that as we communicate to not just to our potential customers, but to our employees, we give them the information, we establish why we're trustworthy, why we're worth listening to, but also want to get them to feel something because that'll maximize our influence.